Okay, so hello to all. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm extremely happy to participate in this important event, which is a first, although I couldn't be with you. I'm going to focus my presentation on the specific features of the well-being economy understood as an economy, which is at once economics, that is a system of thought, of economic principles, and then an economy, which is a social system, a mode of organization of society. So the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to share my screen. And so what I want to really focus on is the fact that the well-being economy is an economy that's really fit for the 21st century, which means that we need to define what the 21st century is. And I think a good starting point for this is, of course, the IPCC AR6 report. And if you look at the first installment of this report, which was published in August 2021, I think there is something that is really striking, and maybe in the thousands and thousands of pages of the report, maybe has not been highlighted as much as it should have been, which is that if you look at this table, okay, you see that the main scenarios of the IPCC all converge toward 1.5 degrees increase in global warming, and this is of course very concerning. But there is a line of hope in this table, and the line of hope is that there is one scenario, which is the scenario which is called SSP1 1.9, which says that temperatures are stabilizing around 1.5 degrees Celsius warming, which is of course already very damaging. But then all throughout the 21st century, you see a stabilization of temperatures. I'm not going to go into the technical details and the sort of magical trick by which we are able to actually go below 1.5 degrees, and the question of negative emissions and the reliability of those hypotheses. But I just want to take this as the line of hope, which is there is one scenario which is viable for humanity in the 21st century and allows us to, in a sense, escape climate chaos. And my surprise when I saw the reports around the IPCC work is that very few people try to exactly outline what SSP1 1.9 entails as a scenario. And so if you go and look at the literature and you see how those scenarios were built, you see that the SSP1 scenarios family, in a sense, are really built around the notion of the well-being economy, okay? This category of scenarios, which is called sustainability taking the green road, right in the middle of it, you have the idea that the emphasis on economic growth has to shift toward a broader emphasis on human well-being, and that those scenarios entail a reduction in social inequality. So I would say that the well-being economy is basically at the center of the only viable scenario for humanity, which has been built by the best climate scientists. And so we should take it very seriously, not just as a desirable future, which of course well-being economy is, but also as a vital need. We need to build this in order to escape climate chaos. So let's go back to this question, which is what exactly is the 21st century and how the well-being economy is an economy for the 21st century. Okay, so if you think about, the 20th century, which started in 1914, according to a British historian, Eric Osborne, because that was the declaration of the First World War, then you can go back to 20th century economics. And it's very clear that 20th century economics was built in a matter of 10 years by basically three white men in the Western world, which were Simon Kuznets, who invented GDP, gross domestic product, in 1934. John Maynard Keynes, who invented macroeconomic policy in 1936, and William Beveridge, who connected the question of economic growth, macroeconomic policy, to full employment and social progress. And so 20th century economics was built around the idea that you have, macroeconomic policy, stimulated economic growth, creating full employment, creating social progress, and then eventually political stability. Now, you have all kinds of issues with, how the connections really work between, for instance, economic growth and full employment, or full employment and social progress. Keep in mind that the US today is at full employment, as exactly the percentage defined by Beveridge in 1944, which is 3% unemployment, and yet it's obvious that the US society is collapsing. So you have all kinds of problems, but the main problem is that what 20th century economics did not foresee is the fact that economic growth is basically creating a sort of tunnel, below the reality of economic and social apparent progress, whereby at the end of this process, economic growth has destroyed biodiversity and ecosystems, and the whole thing collapses. So the one question is, when did the 21st century really began, in the sense of this new reality of the biosphere destabilization and the consequence in terms of well-being for humans? And I think one hypothesis which is possible is to say that 21st century started on April 7, 2020, when you had 4 billion people which were locked down in 100 countries because of SARS-CoV-2 killing thousands, and then tens of thousands, and then millions of people. And so at that moment, because of biosphere destabilization, we lost what we have, which is the dearest to us, which is our social links. And so this was a crisis of a new type, a social ecological crisis, because we neglected our natural links. We basically lost our social bonds. And if you take 2020, you really have, what 20th century economics is doing to the biosphere. Basically, the current economic system is destroying life on Earth and destroying human health. So you have, 9 million people dead from COVID. Probably at this point, we have 25 million people dead by COVID, because over-mortality has told us that death by COVID is actually greater than, registered death by COVID. You have a very strong degradation of mental health. You have death by pollution, air pollution, water pollution, extreme temperatures. So we are seeing very clearly, the tangible destruction of life and human health by the current economic system built on those notions of the 20th century economics. So, and of course, you see also the question of inequality playing very clearly in this process. That is, that in terms of exposure and sensitivity, people don't, die randomly. Of course, the most vulnerable, the most fragile, you have social inequality, which is factored in this destruction of human health. And so economics and an economy for the 21st century shouldn't be, built around the macroeconomic notion of flows of income between firms and households and the state. It should be really embedded in two realities, which is, on the one hand, biophysics laws, and on the other hand, justice principles. And so an economy for the 21st century and economics for the 21st century should be built around the notion of ecological economics, flow of materials, waste, energy, biodiversity, ecosystems. And this should be articulated with political economy, which is justice and institutions. And there you have an economy which is really built for the 21st century. And I think the well-being economy is exactly that. If you think about, so these are reflections from a forthcoming book of mine. And if you think about, the well-being economy, you can build it really as a sort of alternative to 20th century economy. So on the one hand, you have full employment, which was defined by Beveridge as the ultimate goal, and this is really depends on what I would call dead growth, which is the accumulation of material stuff by people. So basically the fact that, anthropogenic mass is now greater than biomass, but this is dead growth. This is growth not in the sense of biological growth. So you can contrast this with full health and living growth. You also have collaboration and productivity. This is Adam Smith, the pin factory, but actually human prosperity relies on cooperation rather than collaboration, and it leads to social innovation, which can mean actually finding ways not to produce rather than just working to produce more. Efficiency, you can contrast that with just transition, that is the combination of social and ecological transition, and then cost-benefit analysis, which is so central to a lot of things that economists do. You can contrast that to co-benefits, which is a much more cooperative way to think about social and natural systems interacting together. So I want to close by maybe arguing for a number of narratives in this well-being economy. So I think there are three main narratives. The first narrative is that, our world would be more just if it is more sustainable, and more sustainable if it becomes more just, and that's the just transition nexus of the well-being economy. The second one is that we can enjoy our social bonds as long as we take care of our natural links. This is the full health nexus, and once again, if we neglect our natural links, we will pay the price in terms of our social bonds. This is the great lessons from COVID. And then finally, social cooperation is a force for social innovation at the surface of ecological interdependence, and that would be social ecological regeneration. And so to close, I would like just to show you how it looks like when you are trying to articulate cooperation, planetary health, and justice in this sort of model of well-being economy. So I think the well-being economy has a great future ahead of itself, as long as we are clear about, how exactly it is an economy as a social system, but also how it fits into economic thinking, and so how it is also a complete regeneration of economics as a way to think about social cooperation. Thank you so much, and I'm really looking forward to all the presentations and everything that will happen in this important event. Thank you so much.